everyone. Nice to see all of you. Speaking of meditation retreats, if you've ever attended a Zen meditation retreat, which I know some of you have, you might be familiar with oryoki. Now, for some of you, this highly choreographed ritual of serving and eating food together might be something that you really enjoyed, or maybe it was just a great source of anxiety for you. But it is a beautiful ceremonial dance of giving and receiving and appreciation. And before we eat the food, which has been placed in our 3 bowls during oryoki, we have a chant. And part of that chant is, and I quote it, "May we realize the emptiness of the 3 wheels, giver, receiver, and gift." And these words ask us to consider the vast and unknowable connections that exist between these 3 separate yet connected things: the giver, the receiver, and the gift. And it's easy to perceive that these separate things might be part of this some sort of linear process, something that has a beginning and an end. For instance, they start serving down at the end of the line of people and they end up serving over at this end. But we know it's not that simple. And there's an important reason why teachings refer to these 3 as wheels, because they are constantly turning, overlapping, transforming. In fact, we can say that they're actually turning each other. And if we had attended this retreat, this sesshin, perhaps our fee to be a part of it bought the food. Or perhaps we stood in the kitchen table with other practitioners and chopped celery for the soup that everyone would eat. Or maybe we were part of the cleanup crew, making things ready so that everyone could go back to practice. When we receive and then eat this food, we're offering our gratitude to the server, to the cook, to the farmer, to countless beings who have made it possible for us to eat. And the energy this food provides us supports our presence and our practice during our sesshin. We're participating in a beautiful dance of generosity and gratitude. The Upaya Zen Center before meal chant is a beautiful expression of this, I think, and I quote it here. Earth, water, fire, air, and space combine to make this food. Numberless beings gave their lives and labors that we may eat. May we be nourished, that we may nourish life. And of course, this is not a dance that only unfolds in sesshin. Although the very nature, obviously, of a meditation retreat heightens our capacity to experience this. But these 3 wheels, with us and all that is around us, the entire universe really, are constantly turning. And as we take each breath, just imagine the vegetation over millions and millions of years that actually created the atmosphere that supports life today. Breathing out without any effort, we offer life to trees and plants and grass through the carbon dioxide that we exhale. So are we the giver, the receiver, the gift itself? They can't be separated from each other. And as a Sangha here together, it seems equally true that we can't separate these out. We might ponder what we give to each other and what we receive, and some things are obvious to us. Sangha members do things that support us being able to be together here on Sundays. But there is something underpinning all of this, and it's our intentions. Norman Fisher Sensei writes, but what is given and who gives? It seems that we give our intentions to the Sangha. And maybe the Sangha gives us support and the security and doubt we feel about fulfilling our intentions. And we may offer the Sangha the courage of speaking up in the midst of that insecurity and doubt we may feel. Certainly, ancestors who passed on this way of supporting each other are also giving us something still today. And he continues, actually, there's just no way to break all of this apart. Giving and receiving, we take refuge in Sangha. This generosity is endless, it's dynamic, and it's whole, end quote. But I think, it doesn't always happen that we have this kind of unburdened generosity. And I've been thinking about this triad of giver, receiver, gift a lot during this holiday season so far, which I feel like starts with Halloween. I don't know, it seems like it gets so early. But I always feel around this time, and it's really kind of tricky. Tricky because our sense of generosity, both in giving and receiving, is really sort of bound up in tradition or social obligations or perhaps some cultural norms, as well as our own assumptions and expectations. I remember feeling some conflict about this as a child when I'd hear, "'Tis better to give than receive." I was thinking, well, yeah, sometimes maybe that's true. And then there seemed to be unspoken rules about when you've given or received too much. I remember in elementary school, maybe you also did this when Valentine's Day was coming around. We each had the brown paper bag that we decorated, and they got pinned up on a wall. And then on Valentine's Day, all the children would come and put, these little Valentine cards, put one in each bag. And my mom and I always made sure, how many students are there in your class, and made sure that everybody had a card. But not every student could do that. Not every student could afford to do that. Maybe money, maybe choice. But I was always upset. I'd come home. I was always upset, and I'd say, "Mom, I had this bag full of stuff, and there were other people that only had a few." And it felt greedy to me, even though I did not control what other students gave. And then to make things more complicated, we have a number of sayings in our culture that make us wary of receiving. Things like, don't accept gifts from strangers, or beware those bearing gifts. So receiving and giving too, we learn a certain way, a certain graceful way to do this, certainly as we get older. But our practice actually also supports this also. So during this holiday season, I've been reminding myself to notice what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my assumptions or expectations are about these kinds of exchanges. And they happen a lot at this time of the year. I've been asking myself whether I'm really giving and receiving freely and gracefully without any sort of encumberment or burden. I noticed, for example, last week I was with some friends, and I gave a friend of mine this small bag of 3 items that I'd wrapped up, and there was a card, and I walked in and I gave it to her, and I said, "Merry Christmas." And she was a bit of a rush. She was setting things up, but she read the card, and then she put it back inside, and she said, "Oh, thank you very much." And I said, "Oh, please, I can't believe I did this, but please open it now." And it wasn't because there was anything grand in there, but I asked her to do that. She agreed. She opened these small gifts, which I had given to her, things I thought she would like and use, and she thanked me and hugged me, and then She went off to manage what she needed to in another room. And I went about my tasks in the kitchen, and it was later, though, that I thought about this exchange, about how important it was for me in that moment to have her open these gifts. I guess I wanted her to see them. I wanted to know if she liked them, I guess. Maybe I wanted her thank you right then. And these kinds of feelings and thoughts really, although perhaps not surprising, are really disruptive to a moment of true generosity. True generosity that does not have any expectations, that does not ask anything in return, but most often gets something. So I had expectations here that got in the way of the simple act of giving without needing. And I catch myself in this way when I send gifts to my family, and it upsets me from time to time. Because I want to know, first of all, that they physically got this item, even though I can go online and I can track it and it says it was delivered to their door. I still feel like I want to know, I want them to tell me if they got it. My ego, again, needs to hear that they received my gifts. And then, after they've opened them, there's something about wanting to know what they thought. Did the kids like them? Are the kids playing with them? You know, gift giving can be really a way of seeking love and approval. But it's also this very tender and vulnerable act that opens us up and brings us into each other's lives in very significant ways, whether it's around a holiday or not, whether it's a present or not. It could just be the gift of time or the gift of listening. We can also take note of our reactions when we're receiving. This too can really make us feel vulnerable. Think about a number of times that you've received gifts from people. Maybe it's someone that kind of doesn't get us too well, maybe. Gives us presents that you would never use or never want. And what do we do if we're disappointed? Do we show that? Can we respond rather in a way that is not hurtful? A way that is appropriately enthusiastic and generous? And I don't know, maybe you're thinking I'm being overly critical and tedious about this. But I've experienced these throughout, during my lifetime, these situations. I've felt them. And sometimes the relationship is really close and you can laugh about it, joke about it. Other times, we can feel the gravity of having missed such a simple yet vital human exchange of generosity, no matter what it is that's being exchanged. We might have missed it because our egos were in it. So receiving can be very powerful and intimate. And it's a practice. It's actually a moment of inviting someone into ourselves. And instead of focusing on ourselves, we can open up so that we provide an opportunity for someone else to develop their own generosity. It can be open so that people can be generous. I was thinking about this topic last week. Something that also arose for me were several of what we call in Zen the 10 grave precepts. And I think that for us to realize and embody the independent turning of these three, the interdependence, of these three wheels of the giver-receiver gift, we can be supported by these precepts. All of them really, but I just wanted to pick out a few that were on my mind. So, as you know, the first precept relates to the practice of non-harming, most familiar as not killing, but non-harming. And we vowed to have the intention to not willingly or knowingly harm. And this intention grounds us in our natural tendency towards compassion and empathy, toward not causing, but rather relieving suffering. And it helps us to turn towards others and to drop our self-serving thoughts and our attitudes, allowing us to become more aware of our impact in relation to others. It supports true generosity, which is the foundation of the non-separation of the three wheels. The second great precept is that of being satisfied with what we have. You might know it as not stealing. It's our vow to take nothing that is not given. This precept cultivates our ability to receive and give freely and skillfully. And it's our intention to openly and genuinely extend gratitude to others. The fourth precept is listening and speaking truthfully with kindness. And this is our practice of not lying. And when we have the intention to not deceive or harm anyone, we can recognize our own reactions and patterns in relation to giving and receiving. And this helps us to be fully present, listening openly and speaking kindly. And lastly, I'll mention the eighth precept, which is that of being generous, of not being stingy. It's our intention to not hold back, but rather to share our lives and our loves, our compassion, whether it's a thank you to a grocery clerk or time we offer to help a friend. It's our understanding that being stingy supports dogs are not stingy, supports separation and generosity and connectedness. Thus, before we say goodbye to each other today and go off to spend our holidays, however we do, we might reflect on how at this very moment we are manifesting the non-separation of giver-receiver gift. We can be grateful that we have just such a place and time as we do here to discover and nurture this in each other. And after we get up off our cushions and our chairs today, as we take the step outward into our daily lives, perhaps we can carry with us the reality that these three wheels are constantly, consistently, vibrantly turning and supporting each other and supporting us with each breath.